This is Jay Fjelstul. I am a fifth year at Luther College, and I am a business management and Nordic studies major.
I'm Sheridan Wilson, a third year also at Luther College, and a double major in visual communication and Nordic studies. We are both taking the Scandinavian immigrant history class taught by Dr. Anna Peterson.
We were given a handcrafted model Viking ship and researched how it connects with Norwegian immigration of 1825. We interviewed Dr. Maren Johnson, head of Nordic Studies Department at Luther College. She has spent her educational career researching the history of Nordic values, Scandinavian literature, and the poetic work of Henrik Ibsen.
We were given an artifact from the Vesterheim that is a model Viking ship. We were instructed to do research of the ship and what it means to Norwegian-Americans. This ship was hand-carved by a Norwegian-American, Olaf Albu Sr. in 1925. It was entered into a contest for the centennial celebration of Norwegian-Americans coming to America. The dimensions of the ship are about 2 feet long and approximately over a foot tall when the sail is up. It sits on a stand to keep the ship upright.
The ship is handcrafted with dark wood and a tan linen sail that has cords of rope sewn in. These cords were used to hang up and roll down the sail. There are 5 metal shields on one side and 3 wooden oars. At the head of the ship, there is a carved serpent head with painted detail down the neck of this head, though the paint is greatly faded now.
Our research was centered around the idea of why Norwegian Americans felt the need to prove that they belonged in America and how they used the Vikings to do so. Creating stories about their supposed ancestors helped them prove this.
When Norwegians moved to the United States, they encountered discrimination and suspicion. Since they were immigrants, Americans saw them as a threat to society. They were often seen as strange foreigners to the average American. Since they felt this way, they created the myth that the Vikings discovered America and that they were the first European inhabitants. These were the stories that had been created about who had claim over the land.
Norwegian Americans identified their heritage with Nordic Vikings and argued that they were descendants of them. For example, Leif Erikson was the first known historical Viking and said to be the first person to discover America. Norwegian Americans used his story to connect their modern migration story to this ancient one. But telling Americans that their ancestors had settled in these areas once gave them the authority to why they belonged. This helped create and reinforce a myth promoted by Norwegian Americans that the Vikings discovered America.
We asked Professor Johnson her thoughts on why Norwegian Americans felt the need to create a myth about the Vikings.
And so when you think about the myths about Vikings, or the way that creation stories are told or immigration stories are told, all of those narratives work to help us try to create meaning. Meaning about ourselves, meaning about our community, meaning about our connection to others.
Thank you to Professor Maren Johnson's response. She helped us think about the Viking myth and how people create stories to make themselves feel more welcomed and connected with others. We believe that Norwegian Americans tried to do this to make a place for themselves in America. It also gave them a sense of belonging.
Using a model ship helped them create a connection with the people around them. A form of connecting your heritage to others is by using physical evidence like this ship. Having sort of proof further helped Americans believe Norwegian Americans that the Vikings were the true reason they belonged there. Ultimately, this helped create a sense of community and connection with the Norwegians and the Americans.
The Norwegian Americans created a myth stating their supposed ancestors, the Vikings, settled before the British did, but also using a model ship helped further the evidence of the myth. They did this so then they could be welcomed without adversity.
Thank you to everyone for being with us and learning about a model Viking ship and how it connects to the stories of Norwegian immigrant settlement.
A special thank you to Professor Maren Johnson for being our interviewee, and also thank you to Professor Anna Peterson for giving us the opportunity to share our knowledge on this topic.